Good afternoon, Colorado. Welcome to our Thursday edition of What's for Lunch. I'm your host, Larry Hers. And today in studio, I have Sean from Blue Island, from Maine and Main, and soon to be coming Oliver's, which will be not far from here.
Not far from here at all.
Did I get that right?
Yeah, you'll have to come down for lunch.
All right, good. Give us a little history of you and your businesses.
All right, well, I've been in Colorado for almost 20 years now. Eventually I'll become a native, I think, if I stay long enough. Opened my first restaurant on South Pearl Street here in 2005, I think.
What was that?
That was called the Black Pearl.
Oh, yeah.
Our first little tiny oyster bar we had here, so I've been shucking oysters here in Colorado for quite some time. But prior to that, I grew up outside of Boston, so I'm a New England native. Grew up eating things like fish and chips, lobster rolls, fried scallop rolls, so on and so forth. So, became a chef on Nantucket Island. Wanted to bring that kind of cuisine and culture here to Colorado, and have been at it ever since. We opened Blue Island, the original location in Cherry Creek, a little over 7 years ago. That's on 2nd, right next to the famous Cherry Cricket. We still give directions that way. You know where the Cherry Cricket is? Sure, I do. That led into a second Blue Island location a little over a year ago. We just celebrated our 1-year anniversary right down here in Lone Tree.
Which that location is gorgeous, killing it, great patio, and a godsend to Lone Tree.
Yeah. Well, we're super happy to be down here. And then most recently, we have stemmed out of kind of the Blue Island concept is our, quote unquote ghost kitchen, or our to-go only, which is Maine and Main. That's Maine as in the state, Maine as in the street. Playing off of the, where do you want to open a location? Well, you always want to open your restaurant at Maine and Main, right? And so we're doing lobster rolls and chowder to go. Super, super simple. You can go to mainandmainlobster.com. We're open for lunch and dinner every single day. Delivery only. Makes it easy for people. And I've been in the ghost kitchen world for forever. Everything from the Denver wing shop to mac and cheese shops to selling cookies out of the basement of restaurants to you name it. And we buy and source so much lobster for the Blue Island brand. We just wanted to bring it to people at home. We wanted to make it more accessible. Our restaurants at Blue Island are very busy all the time, but not people don't always want to come out for that experience. And we kind of realized through the pandemic the need and the want of people wanting to order more than just pizza and Chinese food to go, right? And so here it is, Maine and Main. We launched it a few weeks ago. We're selling a ton of lobster rolls.
Where do you get your lobster from?
From the Gulf of Maine. So we're either bringing it in from companies here in the States, in Maine, New Hampshire, northern New England, or up into Canada. They're all fishing from that same Gulf of Maine, that body of water.
And back to the ghost kitchen, so you said delivery only. What's the radius? How far can you deliver?
So right now we're working strictly out of our Denver location,
okay.
And so we're doing a 5-mile radius.
Is there a plan to do it?
It is. There is
Lone
a plan.
Tree?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So if you want lobster rolls in Lone Tree, we've got them. We've got them there too. But you have to come pick them up.
Which isn't really not a big deal. I've actually, confession time, I've never gotten a DoorDash, Uber Eats, or Grubhub in my life.
It's not, it's one of those funny things. It's, and I live like way out in the suburbs in Castle Pines, and so there's no one actually out there to deliver to you. I'm kind of the same way, but people love it. It's in, it's the now thing.
Let's show them on the close-up the lobster rolls you brought today. And explain to people at home, hot versus cold.
Well, that's a constant battle, right? That's a battle with my wife and I. Traditional New England style. That's the one. If you're looking this way, yep, right there. That's the mayonnaise roll, right? So we use a lemon aioli, celery seed, and fresh celery to make that roll. All of our rolls are a 1/4 pound of lobster meat. Okay. That's a huge roll. That's a lot of food. And then, of course, all of them come on a toasted brioche bun. And then we add a little bit of Bibb lettuce. That does two things. One, it adds a freshness to the roll itself. You don't see that traditionally, but it also helps the roll travel better. So it's not soaking up into the bun. Let's skip that one for now. Let's jump over there. So that's the other. So we would call this a New England. We'd call that a Connecticut or a hot and buttered, which is always just fresh picked chilled lobster, and then it's served, as you can see, with the side of hot butter on the side. So and like if you want to be like really sneaky and you come into Blue Island and you want to do it right, you get the New England roll with the side of butter. And that's like the godsend of all lobster
Insider
rolls.
tip right there. You heard it here first.
And then our special roll right now is our spicy roll. So that's a New England roll that's then topped with chipotle aioli, avocado, and fresh bacon bits.
And these 3 are all available for delivery. And are there others?
These are the 3 we're doing right now. Yep.
Okay. Let's talk oysters since you brought them.
I don't like I told you earlier before we jumped on the show, is I don't like to show up anywhere without oysters, right? I happen to always be the popular one at the parties I go to, if and when I ever get invited. But these are our Blue Island number 9s. These come directly from our farm. We both have a farm, a hatchery, and we run a dive team in Long Island, New York. So these are our Blue Island number 9s. Beautiful, beautiful oysters. It's about a 3 1/4 inch oyster. Really, this is kind of a better size oyster, so you have to be an oyster eater if you want this. It's one of our larger oysters, but you can see why we serve the best oysters.
You probably don't know this.
In this country. That is just an absolute gorgeous oyster.
Let's throw this over on the close-up so they can see. And then get one for yourself, so I'm not eating alone. So, what makes a good oyster versus a bad oyster?
Where it's grown.
Okay.
Oysters are like wine. So in wine you hear the word terroir. We're going to talk about miroir when it comes to oysters. So the waters it's grown in. What is the oyster eating? We don't serve anything south of Virginia, and you can kind of just picture going to the beach, right? And do you want to jump into fresh, cold, clear waters and take a mouthful of that, or do you want to jump into some muddy, brackish, backwaters, when you get further down south? So we keep all of our oysters north of Virginia, nice, clean, beautiful, cold waters, lots of clean rivers dumping into those estuaries where the oysters are grown. And then, I think people, this happens to be a Virginica oyster, so this is an East Coast oyster from our farm. The only oysters are allowed to be grown on the East Coast. And that's kind of another one of those battles of oysters of like, do you like East Coast? Do you like West Coast? Yeah. I only eat Kumamotos, or no, I really like European, varieties, so on and so forth. But to me, I want that mouthful of salt when I eat an oyster. Okay. Some people dump out the juice here, the oyster brine, which is, mostly seawater. I don't, because it reminds me of like diving into that ocean on Cape Cod when I was a kid, and taking it's like, to me, it's a vacation in a shell.
Do you like to put anything on yours?
I'm a mignonette guy,
okay,
which is this sauce here, which is a traditional French vinegar-based sauce. Typically, if I'm tasting an oyster for the first time, I won't put anything on it, because you're just masking the flavor, right, of that specific oyster. When we, at Blue Island, we serve at any time, like anywhere between 8 and 10 varieties of oysters. Right, and a lot of people come in, they're like, an oyster is an oyster, and you're like, well, let's mix it up, let's go through it. And even in New York, we serve 3 different New York oysters right now, that are all within a 20-mile radius, but because of where and how they're grown, they taste so much different, right? It's like drinking Cab in Napa. I like this one because of this, or that one because of that. They're all Cab, but they're different.
And for people who haven't had oysters before, how should they eat them? Should they? Because it's that old thing. You
I'm a chewer. I mean, to me, it's like eat them any way you want, right? Eat them any way you want, absolutely. But I think you have to chew them. You're releasing the flavors, right? Yeah. But if you're gonna spend money and buy them, you eat them how you want to.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Well, a little got on my face.
I would wipe it, but I've already got juice on here, so.
I'll be right back. All right, let's talk chowder.
Chowder. World's greatest chowder, not just Denver's best chowder. So, been making this chowder recipe for 20 plus years. It's got the basics in it. It's got tons of butter. It's got lots of bacon. It's got sea clams galore, loaded with potatoes. We make, if I had to guess, the 100 gallons of chowder a week. I mean, very few people come into our restaurants or order from Maine and Main without getting the clam chowder. It's a staple. It's a go-to. Lots of beautiful heavy cream. It's absolutely amazing. And then homemade key lime pie. Great way to finish. We always try to say, save room for dessert. So whether you're getting it to go, whether you're having it in one of our restaurants, super bright acidity. We use key lime juice right from Florida. And beautiful, we whip that cream every shift. So beautiful fresh whipped cream on top of that. As far as the to-go stuff, a couple of different bottles of soda, and then just bag of chips. Trying to keep it casual. Trying to have that kind of beach vibe at home.
Love it. What's the website?
Maine and Main lobster.com, and that's Maine as in the state, and then Maine as in the street. Lobster.com.
Are you doing Restaurant Week?
We are doing Restaurant Week. Yep, Restaurant Week starts this week. We're doing that at the Denver location only. Fairly good amount of reservations left for lunch. Dinner's pretty much sold out all week, but we get a lot of cancellations because people make reservations everywhere,
Yes,
right?
they
So just keep checking back, and we actually have a lobster roll this year for the first time ever on Denver Restaurant Week. So quarter-pound lobster roll.
I'm guessing you're 45 a person?
45 a person, yep.
Yeah.
Yep, chowder's on the menu, our calamari is on the menu, our lobster roll's on the menu, and key lime pie. It's all there, so you can come in and taste it all.
I'm going to take your advice.
You're a New England guy?
I'm going to put the butter on it.
Oh,
I mean, he gave me your inside scoop.
I gotta come up with a name for that.
Yeah, call it the Larry.
The
or
Larry?
The Oceanites. I can live with either one. Yeah, who's got the best job in the city? Pleasure to meet you. Thank you so
as
much
well.
for coming
Thanks
down.
for having us. Yeah, it was fun.
We'll be back for tomorrow. We have Chin Dribbling for local Biz Buzz. Really, really cool sauce company. You're going to love that. Let's eat.
Professional.
That's a 10. Yeah. And even with the butter being cold, I get the idea.